Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to take the most effective research-backed strategies out there, the ones that actually get results, and just distill them down into a clear path for you.
Exactly. And today we are really tackling, I think, the big one.
Oh, yeah.
The goal almost everyone has, getting to genuine English fluency and, doing it efficiently.
Right, because we're trying to move beyond that idea of just like slow, tiny, incremental progress.
We are. So many learners are incredibly motivated, but they get stuck in the weeds. They just don't know where to put their energy each day.
It's overwhelming. You've got this mountain of vocabulary, all this conflicting grammar advice, and just the basic question of what do I do first?
And how do I prioritize my time?
Yeah, exactly. So our source material for today is essentially a blueprint. It's a really intensive methodology that's come from expert language acquisition specialists. They call it the 4 pillars of daily English mastery.
And I think the key word there is daily. This isn't just a list of things you should do. It's a framework, a pretty strict one, of 4 activities you absolutely must build into your schedule every single day if you want to accelerate.
We're going to try and cut through all that noise today to get to those really fundamental, sometimes paralyzing questions.
For sure. Like, how do you even begin to choose which vocabulary to learn? The English language is just, it's vast.
It's endless.
Where do you start? Or, what's the actual logical way to study grammar, especially if you feel like the textbooks just don't work for you?
And this is the big one, the debate we have to settle today. Based on what the experts are saying, what is actually more important, grammar or pronunciation?
And which one should you learn first?
Yes, because most students, and frankly most schools, get this completely backwards, and it just locks them into this long, slow, frustrating path.
Well, the consensus among the experts we looked at is pretty clear. For that really rapid transformative improvement, you need a cohesive 4-part structure, a daily commitment.
So we're going to lay out the framework today, the architecture, the building blocks, all of it.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this blueprint then. And we have to start with what the experts say is the first completely non-negotiable step in your daily routine. That's pillar 1. The absolute foundation of communication, pronunciation.
Pronunciation is number 1 for a very, very good reason. It's the key that unlocks, well, not just your ability to speak clearly, which is the obvious part,
Right.
but maybe more importantly, it unlocks your ability to understand what other people are saying. The core belief here is that making sounds is a physical skill, not an intellectual one.
So it's more like learning to play the piano than learning history.
Exactly. It's muscle memory. And for that reason, practice makes perfect, and it absolutely has to be studied every single day right from the beginning.
This immediately goes right up against that huge flaw in how languages are usually taught.
It does.
We mentioned the big grammar versus pronunciation debate. Why is that conventional wisdom, focus on grammar first, we'll fix the accent later? Why is that such a trap?
It's a catastrophic trap because that whole approach, which seems logical on the surface, completely ignores how humans form habits.
Okay.
The source material we dove into really highlights that traditional classroom teaching puts, way too much emphasis on rote grammar rules.
The kind of stuff you can memorize for a test?
The kind of stuff you can memorize for a test, and far, far too little on the actual physical production of sound.
And you mentioned this really powerful story about students that one of the experts came across while teaching in Spain. It's almost like a cautionary tale.
It is, and the anecdote is really stark. He was teaching students who were coming out of the Spanish school system, and on paper, their grammar knowledge was phenomenal.
Better than a native speaker sometimes.
Sometimes better than his. They could diagram complex sentences. They understood all these obscure verb conjugations.
Right.
The second they opened their mouths to actually try and communicate something, their pronunciation was so, let's say, untrained, that all that excellent grammar was totally irrelevant.
So they were basically incomprehensible.
Functionally, yes.
Yes.
Incomprehensible. And that's a devastating outcome, isn't it? You spend years and years gaining all this knowledge that you just can't deliver.
Wow. Okay, so that leads right into this danger of delay you mentioned.
It's all about muscle memory. Speaking is a physical act. So once a student has spent a long time, and it doesn't matter if it's 3 years or 30 years, speaking English with the wrong mouth shape, the wrong tongue position,
Those physical habits.
they become deeply ingrained, their neurological patterns, their muscular patterns, and trying to go back later to correct them, To teach someone where to put their tongue for the sound after 10 years of doing it
It
wrong.
must be incredibly frustrating.
It's like intense rehabilitation. It's so much harder than just learning it correctly the first time.
So the advice isn't just study both at the same time. It's actually to put more weight on pronunciation, especially at the start.
Absolutely. Think about it this way. Grammar is a set of rules. You can understand it logically. You can memorize it. Pronunciation is a physical motor skill. It needs repetition. It needs physical learning. It needs daily maintenance.
Okay.
So the expert advice is really strong on this. Allocate significant foundational time every single day to mastering the sounds of the language.
And this is where it got really fascinating for me. This cognitive link that the source material pointed out, the insight that really surprised me, was that getting your pronunciation right doesn't just help you speak better.
No.
It fundamentally changes your ability to listen.
This is the hidden benefit, and it's absolutely critical for anyone who wants to be fluent. You hear students complain all the time, right? Oh, native speakers talk too fast, or I can't tell where one word ends and the next one begins.
All the time. It's the #1 complaint about listening.
And the expert consensus is that this isn't really a listening problem, it's a pronunciation problem.
Okay, you have to break that down for me. If I can't make the sound correctly, my brain can't recognize the sound when someone else makes it. How does that work?
So imagine your brain has like an internal phonetic library, a sound library. When you hear a word, your brain does a super fast search to find a match in that library.
Okay, like a search engine for sound.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Now, if the only version of the word schedule you have in your library is the one influenced by your native language, maybe it's 4 syllables, every letter pronounced.
Right, schedule.
Exactly. When a native speaker says the 2-syllable, much softer version, schedule, your brain searches your library and finds nothing, no match.
It's just noise.
It's just noise because you haven't mastered the phones, the stress, the intonation to say it correctly. Your brain literally has no auditory template to recognize it when it's spoken naturally.
That completely reframes the entire listening problem. It means that all the time you spend mastering the physical sounds of English is actually the most direct way to get better at listening.
It is a massive shortcut. You're building your internal dictionary based on sound, not just on spelling.
Which in English is a lifesaver because the spelling is famously chaotic.
Famously unreliable, yes.
So that brings us to the practical side. How do we start? How do we take this abstract idea of practice sound and turn it into a concrete daily tool?
The absolute best place to start, according to all the experts, is with the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet.
Okay, and we need to define this as more than just those quiggly, weird words you see in a dictionary. Because this tool, when you learn how to use it, is a scientific game changer. What is it, really?
It's a mapping system. It's a scientific tool that was designed for one purpose, to completely separate the sound of a language from its spelling.
Which, as we said, is vital for English.
It's everything for English. The IPA gives you one unique symbol for every single possible sound or phoneme that's used in spoken language. Once you know what those symbols represent, you can look at the transcription of any word, even a word you've never seen before, and know exactly how to say it.
That's the power of it. It's a universal decoder for English sounds. So if a learner wants to tackle this, what are the technical bits they need to focus on inside the IPA system?
The good news is that the system is finite. It's manageable for daily study. You're basically focusing on 3 main things: the vowels, the consonants, and the diphthongs.
Define a phoneme for us again, just so we're crystal clear.
A phone is the smallest single unit of sound in a language. So, for example, the tiny difference between the long ISS sound in sheep and the short sound in ship.
A difference that could get you into a lot of trouble depending on the context.
A very high-stakes difference, yes. And that distinction might not even exist in a learner's native language, which is why it causes so much confusion.
And what about diphthongs?
Diphthongs are just a blend of 2 vowel sounds within a single syllable. Like the A sound in the word my, it starts with 1 vowel sound and glides to another.
Okay. So how long does this take? If I'm a dedicated learner, what's the commitment look like?
Well, if you dedicate focused time each day, let's say you decide to learn 1 new phoneme or 1 new diphthong and you just practice words that have that sound, you can pretty much master the entire chart in about 2 months.
2 months, that's it.
That's it. It's a totally finite, achievable goal. And once you have it, it transforms everything that comes after. You suddenly have the phonetic skeleton of the entire language.
That's an incredibly efficient use of time. So IPA is the core. What other methods should be part of this daily pronunciation work?
Well, it has to be an active analytical process. It can't just be passive listening.
So just having the BBC on in the background isn't enough.
Not even close. Of course, you have to listen to native speakers, but you should also be actively researching the differences between key English accents. Don't just assume all English sounds the same.
So like comparing a British accent to an American one.
Exactly. A focused study comparing, say, British received pronunciation RP with General American will show you these huge systematic differences in vowel sounds and stress, and of course in how they treat the letter R.
And knowing those systems helps you predict how words will sound. It stops you from being surprised all the time.
Yes, it moves you from just hearing random sounds to actually analyzing sound systems. And to go back to what you asked earlier about time, if you have, say, an hour a day for your own study, the experts would say maybe a full 20 minutes of that should be purely for pronunciation.
A third of the time.
A third of the time. Working on your IPA symbols,
Yeah.
mimicking native speakers, shadow reading transcripts, that level of daily investment is what separates someone with a slight accent from someone whose accent actually gets in the way of being understood.
Okay, Pillar 1 is established. Pronunciation is the foundational, technical, daily practice. So if Pillar 1 is about building the perfect voice box, Pillar 2 is about making sure you use it immediately.
When off.
Which brings us to the importance of daily, high-intensity instruction. Lessons with teachers.
This pillar is all about the pace of progress. We have to be realistic, you know? 5 minutes on a vocabulary app or going to a general class once a week, it's just frustratingly slow.
You're not going to get fluent that way.
You're not. If your goal is rapid, noticeable transformation, the source material is really emphatic about this. Your interaction with a professional teacher should ideally happen every single day.
That sounds intense, and for a lot of people listening, it probably sounds expensive.
It can be, which is why we need to talk about the specific model the experts point to that makes this work. They call it the language marathon. And it's not just about booking lessons, it's a whole structural commitment.
Right, it's a high-intensity study challenge,
Hmm.
a model that's really built around consistency and accountability.
It's a 3-month commitment, and it's designed specifically to break that cycle of, oh, I'll study tomorrow, or I'm too tired today. It's designed to beat procrastination.
So let's detail the structure. What does the full commitment actually look like?
The standard full marathon asks the student to take 1 class per day. Not every day, but 6 days a week.
Okay, so you get 1 day off.
You get 1 day off, but that works out to about 30 classes a month. It's basically immersion from your own home. They also have what they call a half marathon for people who can't manage that pace, which is 15 classes a month. Still very consistent.
That frequency is what really drives the learning, right? It
Yeah.
forces your brain to adapt. But committing to something daily is hard, even if you're really motivated. What's the psychological trick here? What keeps people from just fizzling out?
This is the really clever part. The unique motivational factor is a refund.
A refund.
A full refund. The student pays for the 3 months of lessons up front, but if they successfully complete the entire marathon, and that means meeting all the rules, no exceptions, they get a 100% refund of that fee.
Wow.
And for the half marathon, it's a 50% refund.
So you're basically putting down a deposit on your own discipline. If you show up and do the work required to change your habits, the lessons end up being free.
You got it. It's a phenomenal way to fight procrastination because it makes the cost of quitting immediate and painful. You're not just losing motivation, you're losing actual money.
It externalizes the discipline. But this brings up that critical question of accessibility you touched on. This model, by definition, requires a student to have the disposable income to pay for 3 months of daily lessons up front. What about people who don't?
And that's a huge challenge, and the experts do acknowledge it. While this specific marathon model is presented as the most efficient path to rapid fluency, they're clear that it's not the only path.
Okay, so what's the underlying principle?
The principle is scalable. The point of including this model in the 4 pillars is to set the benchmark for what optimal acceleration looks like. It's daily, it's structured, and it's high accountability.
So even if you can't afford this specific program, you should try to replicate those conditions yourself.
Exactly. Maybe that means finding a language exchange partner you meet with for 30 minutes every single day, or using a more affordable tutoring platform, but still committing to that daily schedule. The principle of daily interaction is the key.
That's a fair distinction. It sets the gold standard. But let's go back to the marathon model for a second. Let's get into the fine print. The requirements for that refund must be incredibly strict. It can't just be about showing up, can it?
Oh, they are very strict because the whole point is to forge these unbreakable habits. So to qualify, You have to attend your agreed number of classes, 30 or 15. You have to show up on time.
No exceptions for being late.
None. Being late is a sign of discipline breaking down, and this is the most important one. You have to actively participate.
Okay, what does active participation actually mean in this context? It sounds a bit subjective.
It means you come to the lesson prepared. It means you're willing to speak and make mistakes. It means you have your list of grammar questions ready to go, the ones you identified using the next pillar we're going to talk about.
So you're not just waiting for the teacher to feed you information.
You can't be passive. If you just show up and sit there giving one-word answers, you're not learning effectively, and you lose the refund. You have to bring the energy and the engagement to the table.
So what happens if something genuine comes up? You get sick, there's a family emergency. Does the system just punish you for that?
The system prioritizes the commitment. If you miss a class or fail to book the right number, you are disqualified from the refund. And I know that sounds harsh.
It does sound a little harsh.
It does, but the philosophy behind it is to completely eliminate that exception culture that lets inconsistency creep back into our lives. If the goal is rapid fluency, consistency is the only thing that matters.
It's an intense, but I can see, an incredibly effective way to enforce that discipline. And just to be clear, this model works for everyone, right? From a total beginner to an advanced student.
Absolutely. The need for consistent speaking practice and getting immediate feedback on your mistakes is universal. A beginner needs it to build foundations, and a C1 student needs it to refine all the nuances of the language.
Okay, so we have our foundation, which is pronunciation, and our accelerator, which is daily lessons. This brings us perfectly to pillar 3, the architect. This is grammar, and this I think is where most people just get paralyzed. They want a neat sequential curriculum handed to them.
That paralysis is so common. Learners are always asking for a numbered list. Just tell me what to learn first, then second, then third. They want that external order because it feels safe.
But the core insight here is that following a rigid, one-size-fits-all order is often the most inefficient way to learn a language.
Massively inefficient.
Why?
Yeah.
Why does that external sequence fail so many people?
Because every single learner has a different history with the language. You might have studied English 10 years ago, and you're really good with the simple tenses, but you never understood articles. Your friend might have studied for an exam and mastered conditionals, but can't use a single phrasal verb correctly.
So my personal list of things I need to study is going to be completely different from my friend's list.
Completely different. The grammar topics you need to focus on depend entirely on your existing knowledge and your unique weak spots. The power here has to come from self-diagnosis.
The motto for this pillar is pretty direct, isn't it?
It is. Don't wait for someone else to educate you. Educate yourself. You have to take control and figure out exactly where your own foundation is shaky.
Let's talk about that foundation. The source material uses this analogy of building a house. What's the mistake most students make with their foundations?
The mistake is dismissal. It's arrogance, almost. A student who's been learning for a few years, they'll look at a basic concept, like the present simple tense, and they'll think, oh, I learned that in my first year. I know that. I need to be studying advanced stuff, like the subjunctive or mixed conditionals.
They're trying to put the fancy windows on the 3rd floor when the basement is full of cracks.
That's the perfect analogy. If your foundational knowledge of something simple, like definite and indefinite articles, which is A1, A2 level stuff, is even 5% weak, then every single complex sentence you try to build on top of that is going to be flawed.
And your confidence just gets eroded over time because you keep making these basic mistakes.
Exactly. You can't skip A1 just because it feels basic. You have to achieve verified mastery of it before you move on.
Okay, so let's get practical. How do we do this? How do we operationalize this self-diagnosis? What's the daily or weekly task for structuring my grammar study using this self-testing method?
So this method basically turns you into your own curriculum designer. What you need to do is go online, find some good resources, and rigorously test yourself. Go through grammar tests designed for every single level of the language, probably starting from A1 or A2.
And these are usually labeled with the CEFR framework, right? A1, A2, B1, and so on.
Yes, that's the standard. So you sit down and you take, say, a comprehensive B1 level grammar test.
Okay. And what happens when I fail? What do I do with that failure?
That failure is not a setback. It is a gift. It's your instruction manual. If you get a question wrong, or more likely, if you see a pattern where you keep getting questions wrong about a specific topic, like prepositions of time,
Right.
you immediately flag that topic. That's your weak spot. That topic goes directly onto your personalized study list.
So, for example, I might take a B2 test and realize that I keep messing up the perfect continuous tenses. That topic then becomes my #1 priority for B2 grammar.
That's exactly it. You work your way up. You test yourself at A2, B1, B2, C1. When you're done, you won't have a vague feeling of, I need to study grammar. You'll have a concrete, personalized list of 5 or 10 specific grammar points you need to master.
And then I just tackle them in order of difficulty.
You tackle them in order of difficulty, starting with the A-level gaps and working your way up. This completely solves the problem. You stop wasting time reviewing stuff you already know, and you can target your specific gaps with, like, surgical precision.
It builds your knowledge on a solid base because it's all verified by testing. And it's totally relevant because it's based on your own errors.
It is the definition of efficient, targeted learning. Your mistakes are dictating your curriculum.
That's brilliant. Okay, that gives us our foundation, pronunciation, our accelerator, lessons, and our architecture, grammar. So now we move to the final one, Pillar 4, the builder. This is vocabulary.
And this is maybe the most daunting one for people. The sheer number of words is just astronomical.
So the question everyone has is, what words should I learn today?
And the answer, according to the experts, is that it depends entirely on your goal. You can't learn every word, so you have to learn the words that are most relevant to what you want to achieve.
The source material gives us 2 clear paths here, based on the student's purpose.
It does.
So let's start with Path A. This is the student who is learning for a very specific reason, to pass a big high-stakes exam, maybe an IELTS or TOEFL test for university or immigration.
If the exam is the goal, then the priority has to be exam-specific vocabulary. And the first step here is very concrete. You need to get your hands on the full published vocabulary list from the exam board.
They publish these.
They do. Standardized exams often have official lists detailing the vocabulary you're expected to know up to a certain level, like B2 or C1.
Okay, so that immediately takes the problem from, millions of words down to maybe 10,000. Still a lot, but manageable. How do you study that list efficiently?
With ruthless self-assessment. Don't just start at A and try to memorize everything. The first thing you do is go through that entire list and cross out every single word that you are 100% certain you already know and can use.
So you're left with just the words you don't know.
That condensed list is your daily study list. You focus only on your gaps. Don't waste a single minute on words you already have.
It's very strategic.
Oh.
But exams are famous for throwing in words you haven't seen. How do you prepare for that kind of uncertainty?
By doing what the experts call reading around the subject every single day. You see, exams don't test random words. They test words related to very predictable topics.
Like climate change, globalization, health, technology.
Exactly. So your daily task is to pick one of those topics and read an article or two about it in English. If the exam might ask you about business growth, you don't look up a list of business words. You go read an article from the Wall Street Journal about business growth.
And you absorb the vocabulary naturally in context.
Precisely. You see how the words are actually used, which helps you remember them and understand their nuances. That focused, goal-oriented reading is the daily habit for Path A.
Okay, now for Path B, which I think covers the vast majority of people listening, these are the people learning for general fluency, for daily life, for better communication. What do they prioritize?
They have to prioritize the vocabulary they run into in their actual daily lives. And this requires a level of proactivity that most learners don't have. The central habit here is what the experts call the word diary.
The word diary. Okay, make this practical. How does someone implement this habit every single day?
The commitment is simple. You must always, always have a way to write things down. A small notepad, a list on your phone, whatever works. And throughout your day, every time you see something you can't name in English or have a thought you can't express.
So maybe I'm in the kitchen and I see one of those potato ricer things and I don't know the word for it.
You don't write down potato thing. You write down the concept in your native language. Or you feel a very specific emotion, like a mix of disappointment and frustration, and you don't know the word for it. You note down the concept.
Okay.
Then, that evening, you sit down and you dedicate time to researching those specific items or concepts. You find the correct English word, you check its usage, you find its pronunciation linking back to Pillar 1.
And those words that I looked up become my personalized vocabulary list for the next day.
Exactly. It guarantees that 100% of the vocabulary you are learning is directly relevant to your actual life. You're filling the gaps that you yourself have identified.
It grounds the learning in reality. And there's a second part to this path, which is about proactively thinking about conversations you're going to have.
Yes. You have to think about your life. Who do you talk to? What do you talk about? If you work in an office, what vocabulary do you need to talk about deadlines, meetings, and projects? If you're a parent, what words do you need to talk to your child's teacher?
You're anticipating your own needs.
You're preloading the vocabulary for conversations you know are coming.
And this leads right into these proactive immersion examples, which make it feel less like studying and more like, well, just living.
It does. If you realize you have a big vocabulary gap around food and cooking, don't just download a list of food nouns. Go to YouTube and search for an English language cooking show, or find a What I Eat in a Day video.
And watch it with the English subtitles on.
And you will absorb authentic, contextualized vocabulary about ingredients, preparation methods, textures, tastes, all things that are directly relevant to your identified gap.
Or if your hobby is dog training, you watch dog training videos in English. You're using your existing passions to pull you into the language.
That is the core takeaway for Pillar 4. Start with the vocabulary that you genuinely need and that you know you're going to practice and use frequently. Relevance is the secret to retention. Once you've covered those critical areas, then you can start expanding out to topics that are less interesting or less common for you.
That brings us to the end of the 4 pillars. A complete, actionable daily blueprint for getting fluent fast. It really moves you away from just passively consuming the language into actively directing your own learning.
We've built the whole structure. Maybe we should just quickly recap those 4 commitments one last time.
Good idea. So Pillar 1, pronunciation. That's the technical foundation. It has to be practiced daily, right from the beginning, using the IPA to separate sound from spelling, and remembering that mastering sound is the shortcut to better listening.
Pillar 2, lessons with teachers. That's your accelerator. Daily, intense interaction with a professional gives you that crucial output practice and accountability you need to beat procrastination.
Pillar 3, grammar, the architect. This is all about self-diagnosis. You have to test yourself, find your own personal weak spots, and build your own curriculum. That's how you build confidence on a solid, verified foundation.
And Pillar 4, vocabulary, the builder. What you study is driven entirely by your goals. Either you're working from official exam lists and reading around those topics, or you're keeping a daily word diary based on the real things you encounter in your own life.
And following this whole structured, consistent approach is what gets you to fluency faster. Because you're directly targeting your own weaknesses instead of following some slow, generic plan. You're building strong habits across all 4 essential areas at the same time.
And this whole framework we've discussed, mastering the IPA, self-testing your grammar, the word diary, it all points to this essential need for proactivity, right? For dedicated input and review.
Right.
So if pronunciation is about practice and grammar is about building a strong foundation, the final question has to be about output, about application.
The real-world application.
Exactly. You've done the work, you've implemented the 4 pillars, you have this new knowledge base, but knowledge that isn't used is knowledge that gets lost. So, what habit, beyond these 4 pillars, which are focused on structured learning, what habit must you commit to today to ensure you actually apply all this new knowledge in real-life, spontaneous conversations?
Because at the end of the day, true fluency isn't about what you know on a test. It's about what you can do when you're put on the spot. You have to find or even create those opportunities to use it all, the new pronunciation, the better grammar, the relevant vocabulary outside of that safe structured lesson, that deliberate push into real-world application. That's the next critical step for anyone who truly wants to achieve mastery.